Yo, what's going on? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. In wake of the 49ers-Eagles game, not only this, but it seems as though the Eagles last year would have beaten this year's Eagles team. So I started to uncover some truths about Nick Sirianni's coaching career, and boy, did I find a significant red flag that not only will make you rethink Nick Sirianni and his entire position as a head coach in the NFL, but it makes you start to question, is Nick Sirianni even a good head coach? So in today's episode of Mike Talk Sports, I will be diving deep into the head coaching career and the overall coaching career of Nick Sirianni in order to determine Nick Sirianni's biggest red flag and is he even a good coach? In 2018, the Indianapolis Colts hired Frank Reich to be their new head coach, and along with him, he brought Nick Sirianni to be their new offensive coordinator. Nick had already had experience with multiple NFL teams of being a wide receiver coach, of being a quarterback coach, and being an offensive assistant. So when he was brought along for the Colts in 2018, he was responsible with the game plan. He was responsible for a big part of the play design as well. But one thing he was never responsible for in Indianapolis was calling the plays. Head coach Frank Reich always called plays, and Nick Sirianni had never had experience with calling plays a single time in Indy. So he was an offensive coordinator who never called plays. So when the Eagles hired him as head coach in 2021, not only was he tasked to be obviously the head coach of the Eagles, but he was also tasked of being the offensive play caller and the offensive play designer. So not only is Nick Sirianni coming to a new situation, getting a new job he's never done in head coach, he was also being tasked with a job he's never done, which is calling plays for an NFL offense. So already at a surface level, this is a significant red flag. Is Nick Sirianni way in over his head? Because not only is he getting a new job in being a head coach, he's obviously never been a head coach even at any level before, but also he's never called plays at any level, even at the collegiate level, and especially not at the NFL level. So how is Nick Sirianni going to do in 2021 as, again, the new offensive play caller for an NFL team? Again, something he's never done. And to answer that question, as you all expected, it went pretty poorly. So the Eagles started the season at 2-5, a bad record, and the offense really was struggling under new offensive play caller Nick Sirianni. They had 22 points per game, and they averaged 347 yards per game. Overall, the offense was struggling to get things going, even though they had some talent on the roster, and obviously a great offensive line, and Jalen Hurts did not look very good in weeks 1 through 7 of the season. So after week 7 and the Eagles suffered another loss, undercover, without telling the media, without revealing it until the end of the season, Nick Sirianni actually relegated offensive play calling duties to Shane Steichen. The offense got significantly better. The Eagles went on a huge run, and the Eagles finished 9-8. So for the rest of the season, under Shane Steichen calling plays instead of Nick Sirianni, the Eagles went 7-3. They averaged 28.5 points per game. They also put up 368 yards per game. Overall, the offense looked significantly better with Shane Steichen calling the plays over Nick Sirianni. So again, it is such a significant red flag that the Eagles, 7 games into Nick Sirianni's coaching career, were already cutting their losses. When Nick Sirianni was hired to be the next Eagles head coach in 2021, the idea from the GM and the idea from the owner is Nick Sirianni is going to be the play caller and the play designer for the next 10, 20 years. He's going to add stability to this offense. He's going to be the reason this offense is great. And already 7 games into his coaching career, the Eagles front office said, hey, Nick Sirianni is not the guy. He's not going to be this great offensive coach who's going to end up leading this team to success in terms of offensive play calling. It's going to be Shane Steichen. And again, guys, what is Nick Sirianni doing? This is where the significant question of the validity behind Nick Sirianni's success starts to be questioned. So going into his second season as a head coach, already his role is significantly different than it was going into his first year. Again, going into his first year, he was going to be the offensive guy, and now going into his second year of being a head coach, he's already just that CEO, overseer of the project, culture type head coach, rather than being the rhyme and reason the offense gets it going. So in 2022, Shane Steichen had full control of the play calling duties in Philadelphia, and of course, he led the Eagles to an incredible offense. The Eagles last year were the third highest in points per game, and of course, they ended up going to a Super Bowl, scoring 35 points in a near victory. And this is where it starts to get tough for a head coach who doesn't call plays on offense. If you have a great offensive coordinator and you have a great season like the Eagles did last year, he's obviously going to get poached to be a head coach of a new team, and that's exactly what happened with Shane Steichen. As this offseason, Shane Steichen was hired to be the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and he's doing great things with Gardner Minshew and company, leading them to a very respectable record, and they might make the playoffs with a backup quarterback in there. Shane Steichen has a track record of being a great play caller, even dating back to his LA Chargers days, where he was the offensive coordinator of a rookie Justin Herbert, who bursted onto the scene and played incredible in his rookie season. So again, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't on the offensive side of the ball with Nick Sirianni. If you have a great offensive season, then you are going to have no year-to-year continuity, as you're consistently going to be switching offensive play callers. Either that or you're just unsatisfied with the current offensive coordinator, which really leads you to a tough situation. And then of course, it's the same situation on the defensive side, as there has been a significant regression with this Eagles defense, and I genuinely think Jonathan Gannon had a big part to do with it. Jonathan Gannon was 32nd in the NFL in blitz percentage last year with the Eagles, yet they had this historic pass rush. The Eagles this year really are missing the schematics, specifically with the front seven and the different stunts and looks they give offenses. So not only are the Eagles missing Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon this year, but whenever you have your defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator be hired to be a head coach, you're going to lose even more players and guys on your staff. So you look at Jonathan Gannon, for example, he poached multiple coaches from the Eagles, such as Nick Rallis, who was the linebacker coach on the Eagles last year, and now he's the current Cardinals defensive coordinator. And then with the Colts, same thing. They have a couple Colts offensive guys on their staff who were formerly with the Eagles. And then from a player personnel perspective as well, you're of course going to have Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen trying to prioritize getting some Eagles players from the Eagles, and they were somewhat successful in doing so, as the Cardinals got Kaiser White, who was a significant part of that Eagles team last year, and they really are missing his presence at middle linebacker. And then the Colts did get Gardner Minshew as their backup. So that brings us to the 2023 NFL season, as Brian Johnson, the new offensive coordinator, is now the new Eagles offensive play caller. And of course, it's not Nick Sirianni, and Brian Johnson just clearly is not what Shane Steichen was. This wouldn't be an issue if Shane Steichen was the head coach of the Eagles. They would have continuity year in and year out. But with Nick Sirianni, you have no continuity on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. So the whole point of this video is not to question Nick Sirianni on Monday through Saturday. Make no mistake about it, guys. Nick Sirianni still is an offensive-minded head coach, and he has a significant amount to do with the offense on Monday through Saturday, as Nick Sirianni is still tasked with devising a game plan for their offense, and he's a big part of the offensive play design as well. My whole question is, Nick Sirianni, what do you do on Sundays? I completely get it. He relegated the offensive play calling duties so he can do more of the head coaching things, like communicating with his offensive and defensive coordinator, and overall making decisions he would be distracted by doing if he was the play caller. But that's my whole thing. Nick Sirianni is clearly way in over his head. If he can't call plays and be a head coach, why is he a head coach? My whole fear with Nick Sirianni and this Eagles team isn't that they won't win a Super Bowl. I still think they have a big chance of winning a Super Bowl, not only this year, in the next couple of years as well. But my whole thing is, in 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to be sitting here and going, Damn, Shane Steichen's clearly a better head coach than Nick Sirianni. Shane Steichen's clearly a better offensive mind than Nick Sirianni is. And when is a team going to break the streak of having a better offensive coordinator than their head coach and saying, screw the head coach, we're hiring this offensive coordinator to be our new head coach so we have some continuity year in and year out? The Eagles, in my opinion, should have done it with Shane Steichen over Nick Sirianni. The Bills with Brian Daboll over Sean McDermott. And of course, the biggest example, Dan Quinn staying the head coach of the Falcons over Kyle Shanahan. Such a significant, grave example and a big mistake. So to answer the question of the video, what is Nick Sirianni's biggest red flag? Well, it is of course his lack of ability to be a play caller as an offensive head coach, and he's relegated to being this culture guy. But realistically, what head coach in the NFL wouldn't have a good culture with this Eagles team? So many grizzled veterans, and you have a great young leader in Jalen Hurts as well. I feel as though any head coach in the NFL could have a damn good culture with this Eagles roster. Thanks for watching today's episode of Mike Talk Sports. Let me know in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on Nick Sirianni, and do you agree with my take that Shane Steichen is a better head coach than Nick Sirianni? If you enjoyed today's episode of Mike Talk Sports, smack that like and hit subscribe. I really appreciate it, guys.